Hello, everyone, and welcome to Gejo Speaks. How is your preparation going on? I hope that everything is proper. You're doing well, but I'm also guessing that you're a little feeling little iffy, jittery. Your mock scores is going up and down. And what I want to do is to give you some last minute tips, which I believe will help you with respect to your CLAT preparation. So let's get this session started, ladies and gentlemen. So, what I want to talk about is critical reasoning or logical reasoning. But before we get there, let's put some context in place. The first is, of course, we are trying to get into one of the top national law universities in India. Some of you will have target just the first, some of you top three, some of you looking at top 10, some of you looking at some national law university, whatever the target is. This was a score for open category in CLAT 2021. CLAT 2020, that's a blue line. And this is CLAT 2021. This is CLAT 2020. Now you see the difference in CLAT 2020 and 21. The paper was different. Of course, CLAT 2020, it happened the first time and a lot of crazy thing happened during the period of time. Now, CLAT 2022, we don't know exactly what would be that score that is required. Whether it's 103 should be good enough, or is 100 good enough, or we need 110 or 120. It all depends upon the level of difficulty of the paper. But let's put some target in mind. Let's say that let's look at least putting a target of 110. Some of you are already getting the score. Some of you are barely getting this. Some of you are touching 100. Some of you may be at 90, 80, whatever the target is. Let's say that I would want to look at some sort of a score which is 100, 110. I cannot really decide a target before going to the paper, because at the end of the day, it all depends upon how the paper is, right? But just for conversation's sake, let's put a target of 100, 110. Now, the CLAT has got how many sections? You would say 5. I would say 3. So one section for me is GK, other section is quantitative technique. The third section, all this put together, I'm just going to call it reading. The reason why I'm clubbing all these together is, in one way or another, the skills required is more or less the same. Though many would disagree with me, but the way in which I look at it is just one thing, which is what? You've given a passage, and there is no other information needed. Every information needed to answer the question is there in the passage. For English, you are actually comprehending. For logic, you are evaluating the argument that is presented. In legal, you are applying the principle that is set out in the particular passage. But all that is based on reading. Now, you are at this point in time at a particular score. I don't know what that score is. You have a test score, and then you do analysis and figure out that I could have actually got another score. I'm just going to call it the OCAT score. That is a score wherein you do the analysis. Oh, I could have got this. Whatever that position is, at this point in time, you're looking at what is a game plan for the coming days, right? What is it I need to do? Now, what I'm guessing at a good score is that some of you may be looking at, let's say, a score like 25. Some of you are able to hit a score of 13 GK. GK, mind you, ladies and gentlemen, is based on knowledge. What that means is that a substantial amount of time, a disproportionate amount of time for your preparation has to be on GK. Some of you have your boards going on. So GK is knowledge we have to revise. Maybe new stuff is coming. The CLAT is happening in mid-May, right, or probably end of May. So it's a paper-based test. The paper has to get printed. So the question will probably get set somewhere in, I'm guessing, mid of April. So till mid of April, the GK is in play, right? So we have to revise. We have to keep on learning. I'm sure that it's impossible to know every single event that is happening. You are making certain bets in terms of what is a good event. You're looking at month in, getting access to whatever resources that you have. Try and make sense. A substantial chunk of your preparation has to be there. Even if, let's say, today you're getting a score of 30, to stick to that particular score, you have to do that constant revision, right? So anyone less than 25 should look at ensuring that your preparation for GK is such that you have to spend in time to at least get to these scores, right? And next comes quantitative technique, and I'm guessing people will be at all these different levels. There may be some of you saying that I'm not going to touch quantitative technique. Some of you say I can do one set, some of you say I can do two sets, some of you say I can three, maybe somewhere in between, maybe about 12, 13. And I'm guessing that this is possible. I looked at CAT 2020, I looked at CAT 2021, said one set is crackable. Two set is also manageable. Maybe three sets may be difficult for everyone, but at least I can get a score somewhere between 5 to 10. I can definitely get a score somewhere between 25 to 30. Therefore, between these two things, I'm looking at a score which is probably somewhere close to about 30, 35, maybe even 40. So those are the kind of scores that you need between these two things together. Some of you may be even cracking 45. But at least I would want to look at a score which is close to about 35. It can be a combination of 30 and 5. It can be a combination of 25 and 10. It can be any sort of combination. But I would want to look at a score that is close to about 35, which means if I have to get, let's say, close to about 100, that means I need to get a score of 65. Now, that 65 is coming from these sort of 100 questions that we have, and which is actually possible. Some of you may be hitting at about 65, some of you may be looking at 70, some of you are able to even get 75 or 80. Now, if you're able to get something like a 70 and a 35, almost 105, right? So whatever that plan is, I'm sure that you will have a rough plan of action. Now, the discussion that we have is specifically with respect to logic. That's what we are discussing, right? Now, what may happen is that you're in some of the mock tests, maybe the logic section may be tough. Like some of the mock tests, maybe legal questions may be tough. Some of the mock tests, maybe English question may be tough. But then what happens is that the moment we have a bad mock test, we end up spending all energy solving more and more questions. I never understood this concept. Tell me, is that I have, if you count the number of sets or passages that I've solved for legal or logic or English, put a number. It would be based on the class sheet that you solved, the exercise sheet that you've solved, the online content that you have, the mock test that you have. I'm guessing that it will be very close to about 100, 200 sets. I have put in effort and solved 200 sets. I'm getting a score, whatever that score is, X. Now I'm thinking I'm going to solve 200 more tests or 200 more sets or passages, not complete test passages. I'm going to solve 200 more passages and my score is going to magically improve. How? What different are you going to do? The more practice is not the answer. I think what you have to one thing to improve your logical reasoning, you have to look at, are you giving sufficient time for these questions? Sometimes I've seen that people look at this. Let's start with the GK section. Sometimes I'm seeing people sitting and figuring out the answer. I'm going to do some jugaad here. No, either I know or I don't know. We have got what? In most of the cases, we don't have to. I even have to read the passage. Right? There are people I know who can knock this question in about 5 minutes to 8 minutes. Some people take about 15 minutes. Doesn't make any sense. If you're someone spending time to get 5 marks, then spend 5 minutes. If you're spending 10 marks, then get 10 minutes. If you're getting 15 marks, then spend 15 minutes. These two put together, ladies and gentlemen, I'm looking at something that is probably on the higher side. Maybe about 20 to 25 minutes is what you end up putting for these two sections, right? Which means what we have is that total is 120 minutes. We may have 100 minutes, maybe about some case 95 minutes to solve these questions. And these are what? 6 sets here, 8 sets here, 6 sets here, total 20 sets. And what we have is net about 5 minutes per set. Right? And I know in many cases, you are not able to solve the complete sets. You don't have time. You just can't manage time. Why does that happen? That's what I want to discuss next. What I'm going to talk about logical reasoning will be true for reading comprehension, would also be true for legal reasoning. You've got 6 passages, you've got 30 questions, right? And let's say I have to spend 5 minutes on an average. It's on an average. It's not like 5 minutes for every single set. Some passages may take 6 minutes to finish up. Some passages may take 4 minutes. Depends. On an average, about 5 minutes. That time is these both things: time to read the passage, plus time to solve each of these individual questions. Now, typically, I'm sure for those of you who've taken the mock test regularly, knows that it is not that every question is easy or every question is difficult. There may be, let's say, about 3 questions which are easy, let's say 1, 3, and 5. One question is medium, let's say question number 2, and one question is difficult. When I say easy, medium, difficult, these are difficult for you or easy for you. But what happens? Just because I read the passage, I have to solve all questions. That's our attitude. Otherwise, no, passage will feel so bad. No, passage will feel bad. I read this passage. Why? Your marks is awarded for questions. If I can knock off these 3 questions, and if I got confused, I just skip the question, move to the next passage, I save time. The issue is not the time taken to read the passage. Issue is with respect to you wasting time in question. That's a problem. Everything about reading, be it English, be it logic, we end up blaming the passage. And then what happens? Because I have to save time, we tend to read it fast. And then we don't understand what I've read. Read at a pace of comprehension. And then you can knock off these 5 questions easily. Now you might be wondering, no, how is that possible? Now look at, let's say, CLAT 2021. There are 6 passages. 1, 2, 3, 4 passages were taken by Indian Express. 1 for Passive Times of India. The passages were January, March, January, December issue. So I'm sure that if you're reading editorials regularly on Indian Express, Times of India, Hindu, most of this news, even if, let's say, you did not specifically read the article from Indian Express, since it's an editorial piece, these are news that you know. There was one that was taken from a book. Probably that book, I believe, was written by Shashi Tharoor. Look at the number of words. 300, 300, 300, 300. One was 400, other was 600. Right? On an average, about 350 words. On an average. Now, 350 words, if you read it, you can easily read it in about 1.5 minutes. This topic or subject is not tough. This is something that you would know. It doesn't take time. And then you can easily knock off these 5 questions. Now, the problem that happens is that we get stuck in question. We get stuck in option. If you want my last minute tip, and this is going to be my first minute tip, my second minute tip, my third minute tip, my last minute tip, focus on question. If you're confused between 2 options, just chuck and move to the next one. If you have time, you can come back. Every single time that I'm spending, I need marks. I'm interested in marks per minute. Not that I have to solve this particular question. If this question is not giving marks, I want the next question. There are 150 questions. Right? So, I'm going to take a passage from CLAT to help you understand how it's not difficult to handle the CLAT logic listening passages. My 2 tips is that keep everything very simple. Now, don't complicate your life. This is a simple test. While reading, don't rush. Especially in logical reasoning, what you want to understand is the main argument. Logical reasoning is everything about evaluating argument. And what is an argument? There is a set of conclusion, or one conclusion the author is doing by a set of premises or evidences or reason that the author gives to arrive at a conclusion. And everything is based on these 2 things. So please understand the main argument. What is author's opinion? All this piece will be opinion based. You cannot ask a logical reasoning question on a fact based thing. No, where is the argument there? If someone were to ask what strengthens, what weakens, what is the assumption, what inference you can draw, it has to be an opinion piece. Author has a strong opinion, and author is basing that opinion based on a certain set of reasons or evidences or premises. Don't rush. Understand the main argument. While evaluating options, when you get confused, you leave. You go move to the next question. Come back if you have time. Okay, so I'm going to take this particular passage. This is a CLAT 2021 passage. I'm sure that you've seen this passage, right? When I'm reading this, not every sentence has got the same importance, right? Reading is like a traffic signal. I've got red signal, I've got yellow signals, and I've got green signals. Red signals are the claims that is made by the author. Very important. The green signals are the reasons, evidences, justification the author gives. I will read it, but I will not commit to my memory. And these yellow signals are all the signal words the author is using. For example, the word like however is give me a signal. Whatever happens next is going to be very important to me. Or signal word like for example. That's a signal that tells me that whatever happens next is an example. So here, if you read this particular passage, what it says, is that on the day of writing this, India has reported 116 deaths from COVID 19. In contrast, the US, with around one fourth of the population of India, reported 1,897 deaths, or 16 times the daily deaths as India. The UK, which has 1/20th of the population of India, reported 592 deaths, or 5 times daily deaths as India. Statement of fact, not author's opinion. India has got lower death than US and UK. On other metrics too, new cases, active cases, the Indian curve has flattened. If and when the UK and the US achieve what we have, they will there will be major celebrations. Such low death rates would be seen as a victory of the government, citizen science over dreaded coronavirus. However, the first signal, whatever happens next, is the point that the author wants to make. Because we are India, we don't get much credit. That is what the author is arguing. India has done amazing work, but India is not getting credit. We all know that the author here is little pissed with what going on. Is saying that look, India has done far better than UK and US, but we are not getting any credit. All right, now what is next? Okay, why India deserves credit? That's probably what the author's argument would be, and probably telling us why India is not getting credit. Why India does not get credit? Why India deserves credit? That is where the author is going. We are considered poor, third world, and untrustworthy, incapable of achieving something like this on our own. Instead of learning from India's experience, the first instinct is to doubt Indian data. We aren't counting the cases right. We aren't doing enough tests. We don't classify deaths properly. The list of doubts goes on and on. This even at tests have only increased. Positive rate has dropped, and almost all Indian hospitals are seeing a drop in COVID-19 admissions and fatalities. To think that the deep Indian state is capable of fudging data at the level of every district and every state and sustaining this facade for months is giving it way too much credit. Conspiracies require enormous coordination and effort, and it isn't quite how things work in India. Given that you can check corona data at every ward level, it is also impossible to fudge data. Not to mention, create a downward curve that is moving in the same direction in virtually every corner of India. In terms of testing, while a case might be made for a lot of Indians not getting tested, it is also true that random testing has increased in the last few months. Domestic flyers into Maharashtra from many states, for instance, have to get a COVID-19 test done irrespective of symptoms. If there was rampant corona, we would see a spike in cases from just these flyers. It may be hard for people to accept this reality, but almost all evidence points to the fact that India has flattened the corona, and all evidence point to the fact. Look at this. Evidence points to the fact that is saying India has flattened the corona curve, which is true, while US, UK, and most Europe still haven't. What is even more remarkable, look at the word that is used, remarkable. India, amazing about India's achievement is that it has managed to do this without draconian lockdowns. Apart from the 2 months in April, May 2020, in fact, cases have dropped even as India opened up more. So this way, basically, what is happening here? Author is making a case that India is doing far better than UK and US. Yet, India is not getting credit, and that is wrong. And author is given justification. Just keep this thought in mind. When you read this passage, read at the pace of your comprehension. It won't take much time. I've read it really slow. I'm sure that you can read slightly faster than this. I'm reading aloud. It's just going to take this. And then what we'll do next is we'll look at the question. We look at the options. I really want the answer choice to say pick me, because we understood the argument. We can say answer choice will say pick me. If not, ditch me, which means eliminate. An answer choice should either tell me pick me or ditch me. Either I know it is not the answer or I know it is the answer. The thing in between is the problem. I don't know whether it's right or wrong. If that happens, ladies and gentlemen, problem starts. If there are two answer choices which you don't know whether it is right or whether it is wrong, next question. Now, if it's happening because you've not read the passage properly, then that is your fault. The biggest problem happens because we end up rushing through the passage, which is not neat. Once you understand the passage, you can easily answer the questions. Look at this. Which of the following strengthens the author's argument that India has tackled the COVID-19 pandemic better than most advanced nations? We have to support the author, say that India is awesome. India's positive rate of COVID-19 cases and admissions in hospitals are reduced. Nice, something positive. India's counting of number is incorrect. How is that possible? India's testing facility inadequate. Look at the word. India's case is inaccurate. I'm sure that this answer choice has to be correct. Pick me. Pick me. This answer you will solve. My gut feeling is that the time that you will read this particular question is about 10 seconds maximum. You'll solve this question in about 10-15 seconds. A lot of people say the 15 seconds is too much. Have you seen any shows? All these game shows. People are asked in 10 seconds, 20 seconds, people are asked 10 questions and they answer all the questions. 10-15 seconds is too much. You'll be able to knock it off in about 15 seconds. Look at question number 2. Which of the following weakens the author's argument that India has tackled? Now you have to attack the author. India lacks a coordination and effort to execute conspiracies. Okay, this supports. If India cannot, India lacks, India cannot do the conspiracy. That is exactly what the author is saying. A conspiracy requires enormous things. It is not how if India cannot execute conspiracies, that will support the author. Many Indians are possibly not getting tested. Looks like a pick me. But if you look at, evidence points that India has flattened the corona curve. That is something positive. India has not imposed draconian lockdowns. Irrelevant. So here, answer choice had to be answer choice B. It is not going to pick me. You have to weaken the author's argument. If many Indians are possibly not getting tested, then the data is fudged. Clean. What? Maybe another 5 seconds more, 20 seconds here. Other question may have taken 15 seconds. This you probably will have to. I think the trap would be in answer choice number A. India lacks something. Then you start thinking, okay, that weakens. That's a negative word. But India lacks doing something bad. So double negative, which means that's a positive statement. So the only trap that might have is in this answer choice number A. That's probably the only trap. Otherwise, this question is manageable. Okay, to think that deep Indian state is capable of fudging data at the level of every district and every state and sustaining this facade for months is giving it way too much credit. Okay, what does that mean? Deep Indian state exists, but don't give them too much credit. Okay, that may exist. Deep Indian state, conspiracy may exist, but they are not capable of doing this thing. There are unauthorized networks of power operating independently of the Indian state's political leadership in pursuit of their own agenda and goals. What is missing this point completely? Don't give them credit. No. There are authorized networks of power operating in India in pursuit of their own agenda and goals. It's the same thing. Why is it like that? Let's check it. There may be unauthorized networks of power operating independently of Indian state in pursuit of their own goal, but their influence is questionable. Nice. Their influence is questionable. Don't give them credit. You're giving way too much credit. Influence is questionable. Answer choice has to be C. There may be unauthorized networks of power operating independently in Indian state political leadership for their own goal. Their influence is deep. Influence is deep. How? Influence is question. Don't give them credit. Answer choice C. Maybe. This will take about 25 seconds, maybe. Because you have to read all these things. Okay, but we can mark C. Question number 4. According to the passage, which of the following is not true? Okay, there is no way I can go back to the passage, everything. I'm just going to read this 4 sentences, hope that something sticks out. Developed nations are reluctant to learn from the India's experience as Indian data is doubtful. Indian data is doubtful. Author will commit suicide, ladies and gentlemen. What do you mean Indian data is doubtful? Okay. I think the way in which to make it true, the way in which this statement should have said, would have read is developed nations are reluctant to learn about Indian experience as they think Indian data is doubtful. But the way in which this is written is that the reality is that Indian data is doubtful. This is not true. This has to be an answer. Pick me. Done. Once one answer choice says pick me, I'm not even going to read the next. Pick me, pick. And we are moving. But still we can read. Okay. For sake of what do you say? Completion of this particular question, that for my explanation, let's just read. India does not get as much credit for tackling COVID. Absolutely true. India is seen as poor third world country. Yes, Yes. India is seen as untrustworthy. India is seen. Yes. India does not get much credit. Absolutely. Answer choice has to be how many seconds? 15 seconds. I'm taking this on the higher side. According to the given passage, which of the statement is true? Okay. COVID-19 cases in India has reduced because of reduction in restriction. COVID-19 cases in India have increased with the reduction of restriction. COVID-19 cases have reduced with increased restriction. Reduction of restriction. At this point in time, this is very specific. Now, what may happen is we forgot where this restriction is. Okay, you might want to go back and check. Maybe you're thinking that COVID-19 cases in India have reduced, which is true, have reduced. 19 cases have increased. That is false, right? Has reduced with increase in restriction, despite restriction, because of restriction. Two choices. Either you can say, let me chuck it. What? I've got 4 questions. Let me just move on to the next passage. I've got good stuff, right? Why? Because I've answered this question 15 seconds, 25 seconds. That's what? 40 seconds, 20 seconds, 60 seconds, 1 minute. This is like immediately 10 seconds in about 75 seconds. I've answered this question. I probably would have read this passage. Let's take on a higher side 2 minutes, 2.5 minutes, 2 minutes, 40, 50 seconds, very close to 3 minutes. In 4 minutes, we have knocked off. We got 4 marks. Nice. We can move on. But still, but answer this question will be D because it is given here. What's even more remarkable that it has managed to do this without draconian lockdowns, without lockdown. Okay, despite managed to do it without lockdown. In fact, cases have dropped even as India has opened up more. It's reduced not because of increase in restriction. Reduce with increased restriction. It's not saying because of it. It's despite the fact that we have reduced restriction. Have dropped even as India has opened more. This particular part, right? This particular part. In fact, cases have dropped even as India has opened more. So cases in India have reduced despite reduction restrictions. This may take little time, but if you think about this, no, if I have read this passage, and let's say that I've taken this passage and read this passage, let's say in 3 minutes on a higher side, I'm sure that you can do it in 2 minutes. Knock it off quickly. Knock this off. Knock this off. Knock this off. You'll be able to easily solve in about 4 minutes. But the problem happens is when I read the answer choices does not say pick me. Why not? Because I have hurried with the passage. I'm hurrying with the passage. Your friend, ladies and gentlemen, is the author. There are 2 people involved, the question setter and the author. 2 different people. The author, when the author wrote this particular passage or an article, the author never wanted to confuse his reader. But the question setter is trying to confuse you. Your friend is author. How do you treat the author? That's a story. I would recommend that you solve CLAT 2020 paper, CLAT 2021 paper. Look at the questions. And I'm sure that you can easily get in this particular, it's not difficult in the actual CLAT to knock off and get about 70 here. It's not difficult. All you have to do from now on, just keep taking your mock test regularly and analyze the test. Maybe go back and solve a few questions or few sets that you bookmark earlier. Don't unnecessarily now pick up 100 passages and keep solving. You may have a drop in legal. Let's say, for example, for some reason, in one particular mock, your scores have dropped down. Don't just suddenly say, I have to now solve 100 logical reasoning sets. No need. Analyze why it has dropped down. Maybe the passage would have been tough, right? Your increase in score when it comes to logic or legal English is to become a better, sensible, in control test taker. My suggestion would be that you have to ensure that this is working because GK is knowledge based, ladies and gentlemen. Substantial amount of time should be on preparing for GK. Prepare for GK. Take the mock test. If you still have some problem, take a few section tests here and there. But don't assume That today, if I now solve 500 sets of logic or 200 sets, 100 sets, that's what I need. No, that's not what you need. Be a sensible test taker, ladies and gentlemen. So that's all I had to say. I'll see you next week with another lesson. Goodbye till then.